Yeah, tortious interference is a great claim. If you have a contract with somebody, so for example, you have a contract with an advertiser, and you say, I've got this channel and we have this information, and then YouTube then goes in and suppresses your channel because they don't like what you're saying. Yes, I think that would give rise to a tortious interference claim.
Hey friends, after I completed this interview, I saw this news. Anti-war Democratic candidate Tulsi Gabbard sues Google for campaign interference. It marks the first time in history a presidential candidate has sued a major technology firm, and Tulsi Gabbard says Tulsi Now Inc., the campaign committee for Miss Gabbard, said Google suspended the campaign's advertising account for 6 hours on June 27th and June 28th, obstructing its ability to raise money and spread her message to potential voters. I share this important news for you because there are many lawsuits now coming together against Google, against YouTube, and it's really important. And it warrants stating that I don't think this is just a right-left issue. I think this is a truth versus establishment issue. And these lawsuits that are now coming against Google, against YouTube, are not only warranted, they're absolutely mandatory if we want any pretense of a First Amendment left in the United States of America. So I'm really excited to share this interview with Dustin Nemos and attorney Todd McMurtry with you guys. It's a really important one. But before we do that, guys, I want to let you know that if you are interested in getting into cryptos or Bitcoin, there's a way to do that with an IRA or old 401k. You can call our friends at Noble Bitcoin. Now, guys, Bitcoin is dead, they said. Cryptos are finished. And just a few months ago, that was the general outlook for cryptocurrencies. But now look, the point being you may want Bitcoin to play a role in your retirement future. And Noble Bitcoin has always believed in the cryptos. They were one of the first to offer crypto IRAs and 401k rollovers. And that's the good news. If you have an IRA and or a 401k, you can use those vehicles to buy cryptocurrencies. And it's the best way to do it because when you take profits within the IRA, you avoid paying tax. So it's time to take another look at cryptocurrencies. I myself hold a little bit of Bitcoin for the future, and you can too. Call Noble Bitcoin today and find out how. Don't miss this opportunity. Call 877-646-5347. It's a free, no obligation phone call. And guys, like any investment, you don't have to go all in. You can dip your foot in the pool with an IRA or 401k. Call 877-646-5347 and talk to the folks at Noble Bitcoin. I'll leave that phone number in the more info section below this video. Hey friends, thank you so very much for tuning in. This is a very, very important interview, and I'm very excited to finally have the discussion about the very real potential of forming a lawsuit, perhaps a class action lawsuit, perhaps a more specific lawsuit than that against Google and YouTube for their fascist tactics to silence conservatives, Christians, and libertarians. It's my great pleasure right now to welcome Dustin Nemos and attorney Todd McMurtry to the show. First, Dustin, thanks for arranging this call.
Sure. Good to see you again, Sean.
You too, Dustin. And Todd, thank you so much. Guys, if you don't know, Todd is also representing Nick Sandmann, one of the Covington kids, who was disparaged. The minor was disparaged, slandered, libeled by newspapers and mainstream media outlets after those boys were basically assaulted in Washington, D.C. Anyway, I'm babbling. Todd, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Sean.
Hey, I'm really glad you're here. Thank you so much for standing up for those of us that have been weathering the storm of tyranny at the hands of the likes of Google and YouTube. Before we begin this conversation about the potential for suing Google and YouTube for acting illegally, in my opinion, I think what they're doing is at the very least tortious interference, not to mention the fact they're stomping on all of our First Amendment rights. Do you want to give us a brief update on the Nick Sandmann lawsuits against, I think Nick Sandmann, and you can correct me here, how many different outlets are being sued? I think NBC News was named, CNN, if I'm not mistaken, certainly Washington Post.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to give you an update. This is public information, and we're authorized by the Sandmann family to speak publicly from time to time about the case because we want people to understand what's going on. We think it's very important for all Americans to have greater protection when confronted by, whether it be a mob on social media or a mob of journalists who are spreading lies and falsehoods about you. And so we do feel that this lawsuit's very important. And the current status of the lawsuit is that we have filed 3 claims. The first one was against the Washington Post. The second one was against CNN, and the third one is against NBC Universal, and including MSNBC. So all the NBC units are covered by those three lawsuits. We plan to file probably 10 additional lawsuits against other defendants, such as HBO and Bill Maher, other news outlets, newspapers across the country that republish these defamatory statements about Nick Sandmann. But right now, the main thing is almost a month ago, we had oral argument in front of the local federal judge who has all these cases. And it was a pretty interesting spectacle. I argued the case for Nick Sandmann, and some attorneys from the law firm Williams and Connolly, which is a pretty high-powered law firm out of Washington, D.C., came in to represent the Washington Post. We had oral argument that went on for probably an hour and 20 minutes. And the judge said that it would take him 3 to 4 weeks to get a decision out, and 4 weeks is Monday. So we're kind of anxiously waiting to see what he says. But we do believe that we'll prevail in these in this situation on the motion to dismiss, and that court is most likely to let us proceed ahead on the case. I think the fact that we're even questioning this really tells you how hard it is to win a defamation case, because Nick Sandmann is a minor private figure who did nothing, and there was a strong motion to dismiss filed by the Washington Post that's taken the court some time to consider. So it's a complex area of law, but we remain very hopeful that we're going to prevail.
Yeah, well, I remain hopeful too, because I think this is a very, very important case, because if they can get away with defaming, slandering, and otherwise causing damage to a minor, a private citizen, as you noted, then they can get away with hurting any of us, evidently. So this is a very important case, because Nick was a minor. You're right. I think they really stepped in it with this one.
I hope the judge agrees. We'll see. But yeah, we agree with you. And I think the vast majority of people and commentators, after all this has happened, on the conservative side and our friends and neighbors in this community agree with that assessment.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what's been going on among the big social media giants, specifically Google and YouTube. Dustin, maybe you want to comment on this. Now, did you contract Todd? Is there a lawsuit already in place or happening here? Let's talk about what your plans are. And do the plans include Google and YouTube specifically, or other entities as well?
So, I love that question. And not being kind of an advanced attorney myself, I approached Todd from kind of a lay perspective. I saw him standing up to bullies. I actually am kind of in the position of having been defamed by the entire MSM and being censored by big tech because of the book and stuff. So, it's interesting to see him stand up for the Covington students and for that case with where he's at now, and to see him fight like that, it inspired me to reach out. It inspired me to say, maybe we have a shot. Obviously the energy of the crowd is with us. People have seen it. Anyone who's online can't miss the blatant bias and double standards and censorship of big tech. So I asked him, look, I'll bring a movement, stopbitburning.com, and I'll fund it. Just tell me how to win. And, he's doing the research to do that rather than go in and get something that's going to get dismissed. As I understand it, we're going to look for a chink in the dragon's armor.
Okay. Well, and as you and I talked about offline, Dustin, in emails over the past weeks, I've said to you, look, we don't want any one leader. You don't have to do this by yourself. Many of us would be happy to get behind this, and we could start a GoFundMe, and we could crowdsource this, because it does need to happen. Let's talk about the tangibles, Todd. The tangibles to me are so many of these undercover videos from Project Veritas in O'Keefe over there, getting these people at Google to admit what they've been up to. Today, we have an article that appeared on Zero Hedge, the title of which is Google Places Whistleblowing Engineer on Administrative Leave. Apparently, they've put Greg Capola, a software engineer over at Google, on administrative leave for basically saying, we are at a really important point in human history, and he says that Google has been biased against conservatives since the 2016 U.S. election. So there are tangibles and quantifiables here, and I'd be happy to provide some of my data of what they've done to my channel on YouTube and my sgtreport.com website with the change of their algos, YouTube's algorithms, were publicly announced and officially changed on or around January 22nd of this year, Todd, and my quantifiables this year versus last year's data, that's a tangible, and it's all fallen off a cliff.
Yeah, no, what we're doing for Dustin is we are looking at the law, as he said, to try to find a chink in the armor to go in and attack the social media companies in an appropriate legal manner. And as I've spoken before on Dustin's interviews, they're all protected by this Communications Decency Act, which has proven to be a hard thing to get around. There's a number of cases out there where people have attempted to circumvent that and failed. And Dustin and I spoke earlier about Laura Loomer's case. And for example, when you look at Laura Loomer's case, she makes a compelling case for defamation, but the Communications Decency Act also protects social media outlets like Facebook, whom she is suing, from that type of claim. So she's got high hurdles to go over. But there are other potential avenues. I think the evidence that you mentioned, where they're actually censoring people and where they are basically taking away your First Amendment rights to speak in this huge open forum of social media, we hope to find a way to do that. And what I promised to do for Dustin and for his followers is to really take a deep dive into the law. What I had noticed from reading some of the other cases that have been filed, I don't always think that they had the best approaches to the case. So we're hoping to find a better approach. And I have some people working on this and have been checking in with them, and I'm working on it too. And we do believe that we're going to have a path. And I hope to, honestly, I haven't given Dustin a timeline, but I hope within the next 7 to 10 days to have the completed work product, and we'll have more to talk about then. But
awesome.
Right now, the statement is, I think that we're going to find some viable challenges to what's going on.
Okay, I want you to break down the Communications and Decency Act for me. I think when you mentioned that, you're probably referring specifically to Section 230, correct? And can you break that down for our audience? Because it's my understanding, at least as it pertains to the people on the left, they don't mind watching conservatives and Christians and libertarians get banned or shadow banned or blocked or having their YouTube channels terminated without cause or warning, because they'll say, these are private companies. But these public platforms are now so huge. YouTube is the biggest video sharing public platform in the world. So it really is the town square for free speech. Can they have it both ways?
They don't deserve to have it both ways. You're absolutely correct about the section of the Communications Decency Act that applies. And that section provides these enormous protections. The law was passed in the 1990s. I don't think anybody who helped draft that law could foresee where we would be today and where these social media platforms would be the center of public discourse. And so I am hopeful that through some of the arguments that Dustin has helped fund and develop, that we will be able to bring that argument in particular to a court. I think it's very compelling to be able to say to a judge and to the public just what you said, but put that in a legal document that YouTube and Facebook and Twitter have to come and respond to, and where they're not going to win right off the bat from a protection provided by the CDA. So that's our hope. That's our goal.
We want to win.
Yeah. And Dustin, again, as you and I have talked about via email, you've taken this on yourself, so my hat's off to you. But Todd, I just want to be real clear here. The people on YouTube who care about their free speech, the people who are ideologically opposed to the Democratic point of view, to the liberal Marxist point of view, we should be allowed to have our voices on YouTube, on Twitter. My website should not be funneled down. Google no longer promotes any of nothing on my website can be found via Google search anymore. You got to type in sgtreport.com directly. This is all a result of their algos changes. So I just want everybody listening to know that if you want to get behind this lawsuit, at the end of the interview, we'll ask Dustin how to do that, because Dustin's the one that's taken this on, but we all want to get behind it. So let me ask you this, Todd. What type of lawsuit is this? Dustin working directly with you, and what's the difference between this type of lawsuit and maybe a class action? Because I'm all about getting on board with a class action lawsuit. Does that give us any more power? Just explain the nuances of this particular lawsuit.
Okay, well, at this juncture, we haven't drafted the lawsuit. What we're going to do is work with Dustin to identify the best vehicle including the possibility of a class action. So when you talk about a class action, if you mentioned the algorithms have been modified, and you and a lot of people, you and I and others, believe that the algorithms are biased against conservative voices. Getting a group of conservatives to serve as plaintiffs and to allege a class action of those injured by the algorithms is a possibility. But we're waiting for the final statement of law to know what's the right legal pathway to do that. Now, it could also be that a single person could bring the claim, and it really depends upon the potential damages. I explained this to Dustin, and the idea isn't a class action. Everybody has to have the same harm, and then you judge the damages by all of the many potential members of the class. So you and Dustin might suffer the effects of the same algorithm, and your damages would be a little bit different than Dustin's, but you would both be appropriate plaintiffs for a class action lawsuit. But those are some of the things that we're working through. We don't have the exact legal vehicle in place yet. We're working to identify it, so we're still getting there.
It's a scalpel precision kind of move, and we had talked even about offering to represent someone else's case, like not my case or even a class action necessarily, but possibly even just a mini AOC or a Candace Owens or someone who like Candace has direct whistleblowers from Facebook dumping information to her about how she's being segregated intentionally. Like, that's a winner, I think. I mean, those kind of cases are stronger than any case I could bring. But I just want to win. I just want to stop them, break censorship.
Yeah, Todd, all we're asking for is a level playing field. We're not asking for special treatment. We're just asking for the level playing field, because when there was a level playing field, which has slowly changed over time, and then it got really bad on or around January 22nd of this year on YouTube specifically. But when there was more of a level playing field, we were doing very well in the public square. And I think that's why they changed their algorithms. And now they're promoting what they call more authoritative news sources, all of which are mainstream media sources. So no longer do you see any of my videos in the recommended column. And whereas last year I was adding between 30 and 35,000 new subscribers each month because my videos were being recommended, now that they're not, that number has fallen to around 2,500 new subscribers a month. So they're really taking onerous action against so many of us to silence us. And the other question I wanted to ask you is, in their basket of tools to hurt us and hurt people whose political speech they don't agree with, they have the monetization tool. And I wanted to ask your opinion on that. Now, given that they're private companies, can they pick and choose to the degree that they have been, who gets monetization and who doesn't? Because 80 to 90%, actually just about all of my videos that I put up lately, are immediately labeled not suitable for most advertisers, despite the fact that I have 98 to 99% likes on my videos. So my audience, my information very much resonates with. These are people who shop. They need products. They go to Target. So absolutely my audience is suitable for advertisers, just not in YouTube's view. So that's question number one. Can they use the monetization tool legally as a penalty to hurt us? And number two, I want to cite this example. I think the channel is Just Informed Talk. He just had his entire channel demonetized overnight while he slept. Now, this is despite the fact that he, like me, would have 80 to 90% of his videos immediately demonetized, but then you can ask for a manual review. And in rare cases, they would say, upon further review, we've deemed that your video is suitable for most advertisers. So they've already reviewed them, in his case, and said, yep, these 20% are good for advertising. But then they went in overnight the other night and they demonetized all of them. To which I asked Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, and at Team YouTube via Twitter, how is this not blatant political bias? Please share your concise reasons for having done this to Just Informed Talk. So I know I'm babbling here, but is this legal?
The demonetization, I think that YouTube would say it's legal, and that would be their opinion based upon what they perceive or what their current legal relationship is with you and with others. I've heard different explanations as to why a lot of channels are being demonetized, in that they want to get to fewer, larger channels, and that's a business model decision. That's, I think, what they would say. But I think that the truth is that they'd like to have control of communications, and they want to limit expression from people with whom they do not agree. I believe that the monetization or demonetization issue has to go hand in hand with what we're talking about. So in other words, it would be unfair to pick your favorite speaker in the town square. But keep in mind that an advertiser may just say, I only, AT&T, which I think is the most disgusting liberal corporation in the entire world, they would be able to say, well, we don't want to advertise with SGT or with Dustin Nemos. We only want to advertise with, MSNBC or whatever. So you have that issue as well, that the advertisers have a say in where they want their money to go. But at the same time, picking and choosing, I think, is really problematic. But I don't have a clear answer because we haven't dug into that issue as deeply as we need to at this point.
Sure. Well,
this is just getting rolling.
Yeah, just consider it. And I want you to think about that because, from the conservative perspective, there are many specific advertisers that would want to advertise with channels like mine because they want access to my informed, intelligent, Christian conservative audience. So you can think of what advertisers those may be. They may not be McDonald's, that's fine. But there are specific advertisers, right? Maybe it's Ruger.
Right.
All right, maybe it's Smith & Wesson. I don't know, I'm just saying. But there are specific advertisers out there that would very much want access to my audience and Dustin's. Okay, let me ask you this then. Oh, well, before I forget, tortious interference. So when I got 100,000 YouTube subscribers, they gave me a direct contact at YouTube. Her name is Hadass. She's been fantastic over the years, very supportive until this year. Now, she doesn't return my emails. They say she went on leave, and I can't talk to anybody. But after the YouTube adpocalypse a year and a half ago or so, that's when nobody was getting advertising because all the advertisers were rebelling against YouTube because they wanted this type of censorship to be carried out. Now it has been. But tortious interference. Hadass told me specifically after the adpocalypse, she said, what we're telling our YouTube partners to do is don't rely on us for advertising. Go build your own third-party relationships and use your channel's reach and power to advertise for those personal relationships that you set up. I did that. So now I have advertisers that want to reach my audience in place, but because YouTube is throttling down my channel, because they're shadow banning, they're no longer recommending my content, I'm not getting any new subscribers. To me, that's tortious interference. It's a third party interfering with me and my audience. I think that's illegal. So that might be a leg you guys could explore as well.
Yeah, tortious interference is a great claim. If you have a contract with somebody, so for example, you have a contract with an advertiser and you say, I've got this channel and we have this information, and then YouTube then goes in and suppresses your channel because they don't like what you're saying. Yes, I think that would give rise to a tortious interference claim, and that's a creative idea, and I think those are things that we're all looking at.
Good. Well, I'm so glad you're on board here, and we're going to give Dustin a chance to tell us how to support this thing. But I think the final question I have, and maybe Dustin has some that I missed on, is I want to ask you about election interference. I think what's going on here, and I think we all know it, is that Google, and they've said it, they didn't have a plan in place in 2016. They never thought she'd lose. They don't want the same thing to happen in 2020. So those of us who are out on YouTube and have reach and are analysts of political information, many of us are I have a degree in journalism from the University of Wisconsin. So many of us citizen journalists are telling the truth as we see it about the political sphere, about the talking points coming from the leftists, the Democrats, so many of whom now are Marxists. Their ideology does not resonate with most Americans. Many people in the Democratic Party are walking away in droves because they don't want to be considered Marxists. They're not Marxists, and the Democratic Party has betrayed them. As we tell that story moving into 2020, YouTube wants us silenced. Google wants us silenced. They've said it themselves. So as we continue to hear about Russiagate and the Russians meddling in the election, I could play a sound clip for you right here from Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, saying in a congressional hearing that the Russian interference in the election was $4,500 in advertising. I'm not making that up.
There were two main ad accounts linked to Russia, which advertised on Google for about $4,700 in advertising. We also found other limited...
Total of $4,700?
That's right.
So when we talk about interference in the elections, I think the real interference is coming from Google and YouTube that wants to shut up conservatives in libertarian speech prior to that election.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. I clearly the whole Russian effort on Facebook and social media has amounted to nothing. I mean, he was outspent by President Trump, or that all that effort was minuscule by comparison to what the candidates actually spent on that. So I share your concern that there's going to be a real effort to suppress your voice and others, with the idea being that the electorate will be less enthusiastic or less informed. I think it was. You probably all saw the testimony from Senator Cruz's hearing in the Senate, where the expert witness presenting to the Senate there said that YouTube was able to, I think it was suppress or increase the vote for Hillary by, nearly $3 to $10 million or 3 to 11 million votes. So, it is a very serious issue, and I agree with you.
All right, Todd, is there anything that you think I missed? Is there a question that I should have asked if you were sitting in my seat here? Because I'm just so glad you're on board here. Your pedigree here with Nick Sandmann and the Covington kids, to me, I know you've taken a lot of heat for that, but my hat's off to you for stepping into the ring and standing up for those of us who are being trampled on, especially in the case of that minor, Nick Sandmann. So any questions you think I should have asked? Anything I missed here?
No, I think you and I and Dustin are in pretty much agreement as to what's going on and why it's happening, and I think we just need to find a way to fight back. My main concern is as the censorship and suppression picks up, what that means for our next election, and I think it's important that we return Donald Trump as president because he's done such a great job so far, and I just hope that we're successful. We're going to try.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And Dustin, thank you. You've really let me take the stage here and talk to Todd, and I appreciate that. You set up this call. And again, as you and I have talked about so many times, none of us in the conservative, libertarian, alternative truth media are looking for one leader. So I made that real clear to you early on, but my hat's off to you because you're the one who set this up. You got the ball rolling, and Todd's on here with me right now because of you. So how can we help support your efforts? And I guess maybe we'll learn more after we learn what kind of lawsuit you guys are going to put together, what the particulars are, and then maybe we crowdfund it at that point. What are you thinking?
So I kind of came at this from sort of sneak up on them strategy and a little bit of art of war mixed in. And I also thought about incentives, and I wanted to build a movement. That's where the stop bit burning concept came from, like digital book burning, obviously, which is what we're facing here. So I created stopbitburning.com for updates. You can see kind of the interviews and stuff. But for funding, at first I looked into doing a nonprofit. You can't do that in this sort of sense to do a lawsuit. Secondly, I considered crowdfunding it and stuff, but I wanted to get the ball rolling at least. And I don't see this as a me leading it situation. I see Stop Bit Burning as sort of a where we go one, we go all lawsuit movement initiative. And I want that to be a round table, and I want that round table to basically just be free speech. It's the one thing I think that everyone should be able to agree on. And I think we can all come together as influencers and at least discuss strategies and ways to fight back, around that round table, as peers and equals. I'm not trying to lead anybody. I've got too much going on anyway, but I do have some ideas, obviously, about, how to win and maybe how to fund it. We could do donations and stuff. I'm going to do kind of an official white hat to sell just to raise funds and stuff. But really the best idea I've come up with so far is, as you were saying, start other businesses or partner with other businesses out there outside of, kind of big tech and big MSM's control space. I've created a few of those small businesses now as well. And I'm partnering with others that are Patriot owned. And one of those is White Hat Wireless, which is coming on board, a new corporation that just sells cell phone service. But it's something where almost everyone in both of our audiences buy cell phone service. So it's something that might be a recurring revenue source for both of us, and more than enough to fund the lawsuit, I hope. So yeah. That's something that would be beneficial to all of Truth Media and something like that. So ideas, things like that.
Well, and you and I have talked about this too, and I just want to be real clear because people are very sensitive about this in the truth space. We don't need one leader, so we don't need you to be the leader, Dustin, but you got the ball rolling here and we want to support you. And I think the best way to do this from my perspective would be to decentralize it with some sort of crowdfunding to help pay Todd and his team, and to decentralize it in terms of maybe a class action lawsuit. But I'll leave that to you two to decide as as this thing marches down the field. And I just pray that we can bring Google and YouTube specifically to heel, because they have so much power, and it's power they're abusing it. And the people on the left support that abuse of power wholeheartedly. We saw examples of that when Alex Jones was deplatformed. Pretty much complicit, all social media giants acting within 24 hours to deplatform and dehumanize that guy. And all the people on CNN, the pundits, cheered it. They were thrilled to see it happen. And they don't stand for free speech. They don't stand for the First Amendment. So I'm glad that we're all doing that. And Todd, thank you for what you're doing. Thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sean. Really
appreciate it. Dustin, thank you for pulling this interview together. I appreciate it.
Just the first thing, we're coming together now. We're getting the word out there about it now. But, it's just a few of us at first. There's a few others on board, but, it's going to grow. It's going to be a movement, and I'm hoping to back a winning case. That's kind of the idea. It's not about me. It's not about me leading anything. Of course, like I said, that's not my strength at all. But, I do consider myself a little bit of a strategist, and I like to do some things that win. So I'm hoping something where we can, where we go one, we go all to victory.
Yeah. All right. Well, they took the fight to us first, so we're just trying to fight back. And all we're fighting for is a level playing field and our First Amendment rights. That's pretty simple stuff. My guests have been Dustin Nemos and Todd McMurtry. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you, brother.
All right. God bless. And guys, for Real News 24/7, you can visit us at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda, but you're going to have to type it in directly to your Brave browser because Google won't let you find it otherwise. Thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye. Potential policy violation. The following keywords violate Google Ads advertising policies. Please remove the unacceptable content to continue. The unacceptable content as keyword, Christian.